I want to talk about something that stayed in my body and mind much longer than I expected. A man walking a large dog off leash. The dog came towards mine very fast, and I don't allow contact like that. She has been bitten before, and so I stomped my foot, raised my voice, and created space. The owner didn't call his dog back, and instead of leashing, he reacted as if I was the problem. And the second situation was with a neighbor. He knocked on the main entrance door of our building and expected me to come over and open it for him, just because I had been in the hallway waiting on the elevator with my dog. He could have used his keys, but instead he expected me to come over and let him in. My dog reacted to the knocking, so I was focused on calming her down, not on being friendly, especially since I have a history with that specific neighbor. Somehow, me still opening the door on his request, but not allowing him into the very small elevator with my agitated dog and me, made me the unfriendly one. Both situations were short, but they were back to each other, more or less, and I needed over 24 hours to fully calm down again, and that bothered me. And then I was bothered, it bothered me, and in the end, I realized the underlying reason. I was never taught to resist entitlement. I was taught to manage it. And that is where the word should comes in. And this is not just my personal idea. The should has been talked about in psychology and philosophy for a long time. Psychologists call them should statements. They are rigid inner or outer rules about how people must behave. Albert Ellis, one of the founders of cognitive therapy, described how shoulds create unnecessary suffering because they turn preferences into demands. But even before that, psychoanalyst Karen Horney wrote about what she called the tyranny of the should. She observed that many people build an idealized version of themselves, a version who is always calm, kind, reasonable, selfless, always in control. And then they measure their real human self against that ideal. The problem is not having values. The problem is when those values turn into rigid demands, into rules that say, I must never upset anyone, I must always be composed, I must always respond perfectly. And Horney called it a tyranny because it becomes oppressive. It's not guidance anymore. It's internal authority that criticizes you whenever you fall short of the image you think you should be. So when reality does not match that ideal, when you raise your voice to protect your dog, when you are direct instead of warm, the inner critic can activate immediately. Shame, anxiety, self-doubt. Not because you acted wrongly, but because you violated the image of who you think you are supposed to be. So a should is not just grammar, it's pressure. It creates an ideal version of you and then punishes you for being human. The tyranny of the should is basically this. It turns being human into a constant performance review. And philosophers and social critics also talk about moral pressure hidden inside everyday language. A should sounds harmless, but it sets a standard. And if you don't meet it, you are wrong. So when someone says, directly or indirectly, you should be nicer, you should relax, you should just open the door. It sounds small, but a should carries pressure. It means there's one correct way to behave and you are not doing it. Very often, a should is just someone's preference, but it's presented like a moral rule. And if you grew up believing that being good meant being easy, quiet, pleasant, then a moment like that doesn't just annoy you, it goes straight to your stomach. I grew up as a responsible one, the middle child, the only daughter, the achiever. My brothers had more freedom to mess up. I had higher expectations. I learned early that keeping things smooth was expected, that being agreeable was safe, that being perceived well mattered. So now, when someone frames me as difficult or harsh, my nervous system reacts faster than my logic. Because somewhere inside, being seen as wrong still feels unsafe. That is old conditioning. I was trained to absorb tension, to regulate other people, to smooth entitlement. So when I choose directness instead of softness, it feels like I'm breaking an invisible rule. And breaking old rules can feel dangerous even when you are completely within your rights. So if you have ever wondered why a small conflict can take your whole day or longer, it might be part of it. When someone expects compliance and doesn't get it, they often push harder. That sudden escalation is stressful. Your body reacts to raised voices, quick movement, close distance, accusation. Your logic might say, I did nothing wrong, but your body says, this is conflict. If you are fairness-oriented or very sensitive to injustice, you don't just drop these moments. You try to make sense and replay them, and that means recovery can take time. And during that time, I had to ask myself something uncomfortable. Why does being misunderstood still affect me so much? In the end, I landed at the answer because I was conditioned to believe that being perceived well equals safety. So now my task is to learn something new. I am learning to tolerate being misperceived. Not because I want to fight, but because I cannot build my life around managing other people's comfort. And when you stop catering to entitlement, you will be the villain in someone's version of events, simply because you did not play your assigned role. Some people are used to access to your time, to your politeness, to your emotional labor. And when that access is removed, they feel discomfort. And sometimes they label you instead of reflecting. Understanding this helps me separate two things: their reaction and my values. So instead of staying stuck in the replay mode, I went, what do I actually want to do differently next time? With the dog, there was no space for a polite request. The dog was already running, so I would not change anything in this interaction actually. With the neighbor, it's similar. I don't have to rush to the door just because someone knocks. If I keep explaining I am trying to manage their feelings, that is old programming. The important part comes afterwards. I move my body. I write down what happened. I ask myself this one question: was my reaction proportional? If the answer is yes, I let it go, I close it. I'm pretty sure it still takes 24 hours to fully settle for some time, but maybe next time it takes 12. I don't aim to never be shaken again. I aim to come back faster. And maybe you're in that space too. Maybe you're also unlearning the belief that you have to be pleasant to be safe. The word should is not law, it's not authority. It's often just someone else's comfort speaking loudly. You don't have to obey every should handed to you. You just have to stay aligned with yourself and come back to yourself. again and again. And if this resonates with you, I would really like to hear your experiences in the comments. Have you noticed where should still hooks you? And if this kind of processing helps you as well, please consider subscribing and stay with me on this channel, because that's what I want the space to be. Take care. See you in the next one.